Good evening. Chief Executive Yeung has called on the public to urge radical lawmakers to stop their filibustering, which he says is holding up dozens of funding requests, including relief measures for the needy. Yeung has laid the blame on a handful of legislators, but LegCo Chief Yeung believes the crisis runs deeper. Emily Seal reports.
Speaking before his weekly cabinet meeting this morning, Chief Executive Yeung condemned a minority of lawmakers for constantly resorting to delaying tactics to block government projects and funding requests. Yeung called on the public to urge the lawmakers, whom he did not name, to stop filibustering and hindering other legislators from carrying out their duties. He said the filibusters, which he described as regrettable, have held up more than 40 funding requests, including an extra subsidy for welfare recipients and a 1-month rent waiver for public housing tenants. Yeung's concerns have an added sense of urgency because LegCo will soon go on summer break, and the Finance Committee, which deliberates funding requests, has only one session left, although extra meetings might be held. The backlog started in April, when 4 radical lawmakers tabled a record 1,200 amendments to block the budget bill, saying the economic blueprint didn't go far enough to help the poor and needy. When LegCo President Yeung cut the filibuster after 80 hours of debate, the radicals accused him of abusing his powers and helping the government. The chief executive today said the worsening relationship between the executive and the legislature cannot be blamed for the ongoing filibusters. Ties are at an all-time low. In May, the opposition pelted Yeung with buns. And just last week, a glass was hurled at him before Pandemocrats walked out of LegCo. While Yeung said only a few lawmakers were behind the filibusters, the head of the legislature believes the problem is wider.
I have observed that it is not a few members who have adopted a rather obstructive attitude towards some items put forward by the government. So, as some of my colleagues have pointed out, political problems, political conflicts can only be resolved, or can best be resolved only by political means.
The Civic Party's Ronnie Tong called for dialogue.
The chief executive must be able to talk to legislators. And of course, when I say the chief executive, I don't just mean the chief executive, but the whole administration. But it would appear that C.Y. Leung doesn't know how to do this, or he did not at least try to do this.
Tong also blamed the government for the backlog by submitting many requests late. Pandemocrats demanding genuine universal suffrage and more consultations on controversial issues underlined their anger when they walked out of a Finance Committee meeting last Friday after flashing red cards and embattled Chairman Leung. They were outraged with the way he handled the approval of seed money for a controversial development project in the Northeast New Territories. Opposition lawmakers branded the vote as illegal because most of them were not in their seats when it was taken. Has proposed holding 4 extra meetings on Saturday, but it's unlikely that the backlog of funding requests will be cleared, as Pandemocrats have vowed to continue with the delaying tactic until he steps down.
Hong Kong's Anglican Church leader Paul Kwong has been criticized by members of his own congregation for saying pro-democracy protesters should be quiet. Here's Emily Seal.
The police have come under fire over the way they handled pro-democracy protesters who staged a de facto Occupy Central rehearsal when they staged a sit-in on Chater Road after the July 1st rally. Officers spent 5 hours clearing the demonstrators from the street in Central and arresting 511 of them. And last Friday, in an unprecedented move, 5 members of the Civil Human Rights Front, which organized last Tuesday's rally, were arrested for allegedly slowing down the procession deliberately. LegCo's security panel today discussed the way the police acted. The Civic Party's Claudia Mo asked why officers had to move in the middle of the night when those taking part in the sit-in were peaceful. The entire police force has become a political tool to scare away protesters, charged Mo. Labour sector lawmaker Kwok Wai-keung accused officers of not making arrangements to ensure that all those detained at the police college were provided with food. Information technology representative Charles Mok said it took an unusually long time before lawyers were able to enter the Wong Chuk Hang complex. Undersecretary for Security John Lee reiterated that the protesters had to be cleared because their assembly was illegal and they would have paralyzed early morning traffic.
Hong Kong police officers are professional, but they are also human beings. Like all human beings, despite their training, we should allow them an opportunity to talk about how they feel about being treated, particularly when they feel that they have not been treated fairly.
But he admitted that there's room for improvement in the way the police handled the arrested protesters. The force, however, secured the backing of Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying. This morning, he praised officers for their professionalism, adding that the relationship between the police and public is very good. The Correctional Services Officers Association also came out in support of the police for last Wednesday's operation. The Junior Police Officers Association and the Customs and Excise Staff General Association gave their backing earlier. Meanwhile, the leader of Hong Kong's Anglican Church, Paul Kwong, triggered a controversy by saying those who took part in the July 1st protest had a herd mentality. He added that pro-democracy advocates should keep quiet, saying Jesus remained silent when he was crucified. Kwong is also a member of China's top political advisory body, the CPPCC, and his remarks angered many in his church who phoned into a radio show to accuse the Archbishop of trying to appease Beijing.
The number of primary 6 students allocated to their first-choice secondary school is the highest in percentage terms in more than a decade. But this was mainly because the number of students joining the allocation scheme was among the lowest. Anne-Marie Sim reports.
There were cheers, high fives, and victory signs, while some hadn't quite digested the news, as thousands of primary 6 students across the city found out if they had been accepted to the secondary schools of their choice. But for some students at this school in Tuen Mun, there were tears. This girl was upset because she only got into her third-choice school. But they were advised not to give up hope.
The foremost thing we can do is to prepare a recommendation letter for them, and then maybe we will ask some of the council teachers to give them some advice, mentally, to calm down themselves first, and then to ask the students to prepare for the written exam as well as the oral interviews.
According to the placement results, 78% or 38,072 of primary 6 students were allocated schools of their first choice, with 91% or 44,418 placed in one of their first 3 choices. Both figures are the highest since 2000. Last year, 76% were allocated their first pick and 89% the first 3 choices. But Education Bureau figures showed a falling trend in the number of students joining the allocation scheme. In 2000, there were 82,419 students, but that fell to 51,649 last year. Only 48,811 students joined the allocation scheme this year. That's 2,838 fewer than in 2013. And that number could fall further. Education sector lawmakers expect the number of students in the scheme to fall to a record low next year because the birth rate has been dropping since the 1997 handover.
The Consumer Council has for the first time named and shamed an online shop following numerous complaints. Winner Wong reports.
This is the first time that the Consumer Council has named an online shop for malpractice. The website birth.hk is registered under the company Birth Enterprise and sells baby milk formula and other infant goods. Between May 2013 and last month, the watchdog received 91 complaints, all from mainlanders, involving goods worth $285,000. Most were about slow delivery, failure to deliver, and failing to offer refunds. Sometimes the bait-and-switch tactic was used whereby customers were persuaded to switch to a different brand after they had already made an order and paid for it. One complainant paid almost $8,700 for 36 cans of milk powder in July last year, but only received 2 cans. Her request for a refund was ignored.
But if the trader has no ability to honor its promise to deliver the goods or to meet the request for refund, that's possible, that they can have wrongly accepted payment.
The council says it has tried speaking with the Hong Kong-based company many times and issued multiple warnings, but Birth Enterprise was uncooperative. The case has been passed on to the Customs and Excise Department, which will decide if there are any grounds for legal action. As online shopping gains popularity, there's danger that unscrupulous firms will take advantage of vulnerable shoppers. To avoid problems, the Consumer Council advises people to ensure that companies are reputable by checking their operating address and phone numbers. Customers should also keep their transaction receipts and documents. Winna Wong, ATV News.
Health officials are concerned that babies as young as 8 months old have been exposed to electronic screen devices. They warn that overuse and overexposure could cause severe health problems. Here's Winna Wong.
Experts have noted a worrying trend. Infants as young as 8 months have been exposed to electronic screen products. A recent study by the Center for Health Protection also found that almost half of all primary and secondary students interviewed sacrificed some of their sleeping time in order to play computer games or use their electronic gadgets. And 40% of them admitted that less sleep has adversely affected their studies. Apart from falling back in their studies, addiction to electronic screen devices can be harmful to health. Eye expert Ko Tak-chun warned that it's possible that constant users could suffer from short-sightedness or even eye cancer. Psychologist Pao Si-yuan warned that abusing electronic products can lead to mental problems like anxiety disorder and hyperactivity.
Children of very young age should participate in more interactive activities with their parents. And also one of our health tips is that the children should participate in physical activities. Say, for example, for preschool children, they need to have at least 3 hours a day physical activities. And for other school children, they need to have at least 1 hour a day physical activities.
Parents were urged not to give children under the age of 2 easy access to electronic devices. Health experts also advised people to use advanced technology properly so that they can enjoy the benefits without risking their health. Winna Wong, ATV News.
Overseas, 500,000 people in Okinawa have sought shelter as a powerful storm swept past the southern Japanese island chain. On its current track, Super Typhoon Yeung could lash Japan's main islands later this week. Ann Chang reports.
Rubble from